Here we go. We're live. All right. So people are going to be trickling in, but I'm excited for today. This is the last of our 4 webinars that we've done for National Infertility Awareness Week. You could say the best for last because I love this kind of topic. I've learned so much in the last year about donor sperm. So I'm excited about this session or webinar. But as a refresher, I'm Thiv, founder and CEO of Hera Fertility, where we're helping men become fathers with our sperm health platform. And I have the pleasure of being in front of Danielle and Paige, the founders of SeedScout. And so if you guys can introduce yourselves, that'll be awesome.
Yeah. I'm Danielle. This is my wife, Paige, but she'll introduce herself too. But I just want to say we're married. We live in like the DC area. We have 2 kids, 2.5 and 6 months old almost. And then we started a company called the SeedScout, which I'm sure we'll get into in more detail. But my background is that I'm a lawyer by trade, but I'm a recovered lawyer, as I like to joke, because I got out of it, which is the best thing that's ever happened to me, probably, besides our kids. And then,
what about me?
And her, I guess.
Just that small thing called
besides
marriage.
our family. And then, so I'm full-time at SeedScout.
And hi, I'm Paige. I'm a practicing pediatrician over in a primary care clinic in Maryland. And I'm also part-time working with SeedScout, doing a lot of the medical side of things through SeedScout. And we're super excited to be here today.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Well, thank you for joining. So I've done a few of these and honestly, 30 minutes is so short to cover all the different questions that have come in. And so want to just get right into it, if that's okay.
Yeah,
let's do it.
Perfect. So the first one that we got, I think is a good way to start is a lot of patients or people are on this journey at different stages, but at the beginning is always an important one. So we have just learned we need a sperm donor. Where do we even begin?
Yeah. So this is there's a lot of options. Let's start with that. The way I like to break it up, well, first, I think when you first learn you need a sperm donor, if you're not like a queer couple that has known your whole life that would be the way that you'd be conceiving, take time to process it, because jumping in without really, realizing your feelings or figuring out like what's best for your family is really hard. And so I really recommend talking to therapists that are specialized in this subject, reading books. Like there's a book called 3 Makes Baby that really kind of outlines, it's a workbook too. It outlines like where your feelings are about this and kind of like what you might need to work through before, et cetera. But what I would say about like how to start is figuring out what category is best for you. So there's a bunch of categories. On the far end is anonymous donors. This is donors that your kids will never get the name of unless a DNA test shows up, right? The clinic or the cryobank will never give you that name. These are all done through cryobanks. So you go to a cryobank, you pick, sometimes they have pictures, sometimes they don't, sometimes they only have baby pictures, et cetera. And you pick that donor and they ship you sperm, Amazon, add to cart. The second option is still through sperm banks, and that is open ID donors. Those are known at the age of 18. So at the age of 18, kids can write in saying, I would like to get information about the donor. They'll give the kid information. That information is 18 or 19 years old at minimum. So that might not be the right contact information anymore, not the right cell phone number, not the right address, anything like that, the right name, but that could be hard to find. And again, add to cart, Amazon style. Then you have something in between, which is something that we created. And that is like, and I think we're pretty much the only ones really doing it this way, but it's a known donor that you get to meet through the process. You get to know, everything about them. You can contact them. Your kids can know them at any age that you desire. And there's, for us at least, there's like a 3-family limit, and we'll talk about limits a little bit probably, but for us, there's a 3-family limit. And so the donor can't donate to more than 3 families other than close friends and family, people he can like prove that he's been close friends with for at least a year. And that's a very like, it's known, but you don't have this years of knowing them, or you don't have this, like, I have no idea, I might meet them one day when our kids are already older. Then you have on the other side of it, family members and friends, or people that you meet on apps. I guess I should have started with people you meet on apps, because that's kind of like the next one, right? And a lot of times that's looking for a hookup type of situation. Unfortunately, it is a lot of times. What's like natural insemination, right?
Yeah.
Like that's,
No,
I don't know how else to say it.
I think there's some that do AI on
There
the
are.
apps. I think it's just a little bit trickier from a legal standpoint. You don't have
Yeah.
the vetting of the medical history. So it's a little looser in terms of a known donor relationship. Like you do know the name of the person.
Sure.
There are some that do
Yeah.
AI, but it's not as legally sound.
And no one's monitoring how many families they're donating to. So it could be a lot, it could be just one, right? You just never know. But yes, there's a lot. I can tell you our experience when we were on those, that, you know, when we started looking, it was a lot of like natural insemination only.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's not the point. You know, we are lesbians. You are not getting the message here. But a lot of kind of like weird encounters, but also some normal encounters. So it just depends. And then you have the friends and family. So people in your network, which can come with complications or it could be amazing, right? It just kind of depends. But those are the categories.
And I was going to say, like, on where do you begin? I think so many of us think about this step last, but I think one of the most important steps to think about is how is your donor conceived child going to feel in the future? So many of us think of what we want and what our goals are for the future, whether that's like, I want to keep this person to myself and like, I want my child to be mine and nobody else's, or like, if you're going to think about it from what your kid will eventually want. I think that's such a big question to put into the front of your mind because that's the person that's resulting from this.
It's hard to think about a kid when there's no kid that exists. So like a lot of people just forget about it. So like, well, I don't know what he would want or she would want, but it is really important. So there's a lot of research that can be done for how donor conceived people feel in general, which is important. But yeah.
Just lastly on that part, are there communities that people should be seeking out to get a good sense of how donor conceived children and how to engage there?
Yeah, there's
the one survey. So that's where we kind of like founded our company based on like the data from that, but it's the We Are Donor Conceived 2020 survey. So that has some like broad reaching kind of topics about like actual research from donor conceived people.
And the nice part about that one is that they've asked people that are in same-sex relationships, that are children from same-sex relationships, opposite sex relationships, single parents, known at birth, known, you know, like they got told young, they didn't get told young, right? Like it's everyone. And the data is like insane. It's like 90 something % for almost everything, which coming from so many different groups of situations, it's really amazing that they all feel very similarly. There's also
that Facebook group, Donor Conceived.
We are, no, it's Donor Conceived Best Practices or something on Facebook. It's a big group and a lot of people come forward. There's donor conceived people and people who have donor conceived children, et cetera, on there. And everyone's just kind of discussing like best ways to do everything. And then there's someone named Laura High, who's a great resource. She's like a comedian, but also donor conceived. So she writes, she makes a lot of content that is very, very studied before. So she makes sure there's no like false information on her pages. And it's a lot about like what banks should be doing or shouldn't be doing, or what's good, what's bad in the industry for donor conceived people.
Gotcha. Perfect. Yeah. I think that covers a bunch of different areas there too, and super helpful. The next question this is a legal one. So here, if I'm using a known donor, do I need a lawyer, even if we both agree they won't be involved?
Please, I'm begging you, do not do this without a lawyer. Yes, both parties should be represented, the couple or single person and the donor. And it should only be with lawyers who practice this. This is their bread and butter. You should not hire a divorce lawyer to be doing this. You should not hire a custody lawyer to be doing this. It's called artificial reproductive technology law. And I think there's a website where it's like an accreditation called AAAA. It's like adoption and I don't know, something like that. Those are the people, I have no idea what it stands for, honestly, but those are the people that they're all listed on that website. They're really good resources. Every state has wonderful attorneys that do this every day, and it is worth the investment to not have legal issues down the road.
And I think it's also important that each person in the group has independent counsel. So the recipient parents have a lawyer and then the donor has their own lawyer so that there's no conflict. I don't know, you're the pro in this.
No,
conflict of interest of
not
representing who.
Not conflict of interest, but just making sure that every party knows what they're signing. So there's not a question of, I wasn't represented, I read it and I signed it and I don't have enough knowledge. You want to make sure that each party had someone explaining it to them, suggesting edits, et cetera, before signing.
Gotcha. And then a follow-up there that I thought I was going to say for later, but that I saw come up. Here it is, we're an unmarried couple using donor sperm. Does my partner have legal rights?
This is really state dependent. Generally speaking, most states, if you are a opposite sex couple at birth, so I don't think this applies to anyone with like a trans person in their family. But if you are an opposite sex couple, like from birth, then you do have rights, which is
Unmarried.
I don't know about unmarried or not, actually. I don't know. I think they do. I think
point of the legal agreement, though. It depends also probably if it's
That's a good question.
Yeah, like a legal relationship versus.
Yeah. I don't know the answer to that. It's probably state dependent is my answer. But I would say I definitely know a married couple with two like different sexes can they would automatically have rights. For same-sex couples, I don't think, and not any state that I know of, you get rights automatically. You have to go through it like some sort of adoption process, or there's different names in different states for that. Some are more, secure, more stringent than others. But yeah, I would say unmarried is I don't know the answer to that. And then you never know what's going to happen, right? State laws can always change. So my view is always like cross your T's, dot your I's, and make sure that everything is set up for the worst case scenario.
Our kids were born in DC, which is like one of the most forward like kind of areas in this. And we still pursued second parent adoption just out of the fact of like, we want to make sure that we have put every safeguard in place to have formal proof in 12 different ways that these kids are ours.
Yeah.
Not that our donor would ever do anything of that, but
you never know. And you got to cover this is why, again, you want a lawyer.
Yeah. And I just want to make a quick point of like anybody that is using a family member, this question comes up because they're like, well, it's my brother. I trust him. Like, why would I ever need this? But that's actually where I find it the most important of finding like having that legal agreement in place, just so that like the lines are already a little blurred where he's like the uncle, but the biological father. So I find it's most important in that situation.
That's a great point. And now we have a more medical clinical one.
That's me. Yeah.
We're both so nerdy. How did we just make the same joke?
That's a perfect combo here.
We've been married for too long. That's the answer.
I've decided to use a known donor. Who's responsible for making sure the testing gets done? Is it me, the clinic, the donor?
Yeah. So I guess this depends on if you're working with SeedScout or if you're doing this like with a friend or a family member. If you're doing it with a friend or family member, the clinic is going to send you like a 2-page document being like, these are all the million requirements you have, go forth and prosper. And they might give you like a list of 12 psychologists or a list of legal representations, but then it's your job to put pen to paper and kind of do all of those steps. And most times it's going to be the recipient parents running that, with the donors just kind of following suit. With us, with SeedScout, we coordinate the semen analysis, well, with a lot of Hera help actually, and genetics as well. I order all the donor genetics, and then we provide links for the clients to be able to do their own genetics. And then we kind of put out a roadmap of all the following steps and give the links and the contacts and be like, we love this lawyer. This was the best lawyer in your state that we recommend. So we kind of like do it in a stepwise approach to make it a lot of smaller bites instead of like one big bite. Yeah.
But usually the donor isn't like, he has no idea where to start, or she has no idea, I guess, depending. And so a lot of times there are a couple clinics that will charge a fee, like $3,000-$4,000 or something to walk you through some stuff, but it's really more like, we're going to review the paperwork as it comes in, which they all do. So we went through it without a company because we didn't exist back then. Obviously it's a company when we went through the process, and it was hard, and we're a doctor and a lawyer, and we still found it really hard. So that's why, we have a lot of people doing a guidance package with us because they're just kind of lost, but it's really on the couple or the intended parent or parent.
The clinic doesn't really our clinic's never really checked in being like, what's the status of this, besides when we were like sending them the updates. Basically they do make sure it all gets checked off because clinics have liability too, so they're very type A, which I think is a good thing. But, you
never know. And then here you kind of mentioned some of them, but non-negotiable tests that should be done by the donor before, and I'm guessing this is kind of like part of their profile. If you're an intended parent, what should you be looking for? What tests should be done?
Yeah, so make sure they're fertile. Semen analysis, just a basic one. And then the genetic test is for carrier gene screening, which checks for recessive genes. So these are genes that if you're a carrier, you won't necessarily have the disease or have any symptoms from it. But if you and the recipient parent, if the donor and the recipient parent have the same carrier gene, the kids could be at risk. So if Danielle and I could have had a baby together and we were both cystic fibrosis carriers, our kids would have a 25% chance of having CF, even though we are totally unaffected. Is how I kind of like to talk about that. But definitely those two are like high priority. There's also the psychological assessment, which you could think of as like a medical test, which sometimes clinics require something called a PAI or a personality assessment, where they do this million question test to make sure there are no signs of like narcissism or defensiveness, or trying to think of some of the other stuff we've seen along the way. But those are the three main ones. I think the thing that I found most important in our journey was an accurate and updated medical history. So for me, that was like, well, it's not a medical test. Like having somebody do a thorough intake of a medical history is so important, because there's been so many times a donor will say, hey, my mom had this. And then I'll ask 12 more questions and figure out it was totally something different. And so having that knowledge for your donor conceived child or person in the future is huge. So that too.
Yeah. And for the genetic test, I would say like a lot of people come to us and they're like, I did one. And I'm like, oh, great. How many genes? And they're like 14. And I'm like, oh my God, we have to get you a bigger one. Like 14 is nothing. Most genetic counselors think somewhere between 300 to 700 or 600 is like the sweet spot. We aim for like 445 just because that seems like a good number, and it really covers the big, important ones, without getting too into the weeds of like little details that people like aren't going to necessarily care about, like little genes that aren't as important.
Perfect. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. And then a good follow-up there is around what this question is: what happens if we find out after conception that the donor had an undisclosed medical condition?
Yeah, I guess the question is it undisclosed or is it a new diagnosis? Undisclosed is very frustrating, and could potentially, if it was a purposeful omission, you're the legal person again. That could be dangerous for the donor if they didn't disclose something up front. But if it's a new medical diagnosis, I think that's the importance of having that known donor relationship, of knowing you can always like have them just reach out to you if there's anything major that comes along, so you can have your offspring tested for it is so important. I think sperm banks, as a pediatrician, I work with a lot of, as you can imagine, like queer families and families that have used donors. And I sometimes do get reports back of like, hey, this donor has a new medical history, but it's rare. I'd say the majority, I don't get updates about that over time, even though it's unlikely over the course of 30 years that somebody doesn't get a new diagnosis, or 20 years.
And it's actually no legal requirement for any banks that I know of that for the donor to update a bank, or even for the bank to update intended parents if they know that information. So there's two possible areas of disconnect there, which is like really dangerous for the children.
Yeah. And we had an egg donor, actually, a prior egg donor, reach out to us once, who had an autosomal dominant condition, which is basically a guaranteed 50-50 shot your child will have that if that's the biological parent. And she was reaching out to us because she donated anonymously years ago and was like, I desperately want to find these families. What can you do to help me?
Not with us, by the way.
Yeah, we don't do egg donors. So. But she was like, I'm desperately trying to find them. Is there anything you can do with your platforms? And then we ended up being able to connect her to at least one of the families, I remember. But to like test your kids for that is huge, because this is something, what she had is something that can cause sudden death from an aneurysm, and that's something you just wouldn't know about until it happened. So they were able to get kids screened for it, and it just makes all the difference. But yeah.
Wow, super helpful.
Yeah.
And then now moving to cost. One question that we got was, how much does sperm donor actually cost?
Yeah, this depends a lot. So the bank costs generally are around like $1,800 to $2,500 per vial. One vial is usually one IUI attempt. They sometimes need 2 vials depending on like how it thaws. And then it's almost always one IVF attempt. So people doing IVF might need 2 vials per kid is kind of what you aim for, unless you know of like a medical condition making it less likely to become pregnant. And then for IUI, pretty low, like it's not the highest of chances of getting pregnant, as I think most of us know.
I've seen like somewhere between 10 to 20% chance per IUI, and that's for people of like a
And that's
typically fertile age range.
And that's also like factoring in people using fresh sperm and frozen sperm. And with frozen sperm, everything decreases about 50% on average, which now we're talking a lot lower numbers, obviously, for frozen sperm. But so I would say people need about 5 or 6 vials per kid. Hopefully that's enough. But the problem is if you don't buy enough up front, the donor could sell out, and then you might not have a chance to have the same donor for a second kid, for example. And so there's a lot of like pressure to buy all of them at once with sperm banks, because you just never know what's going to happen with that donor. With us, like we try to get 4 donations worth of vials for people doing IUI and 2 or 3 for people doing IVF, which results in usually more than enough for IVF. But for IUI, about like 15 vials, or like 10 to 20 vials, so 15 average, and hoping that's like enough for their whole journey, or they can go back and get more if needed.
Get more. Got it. Yeah, that actually answers another question that was here about having a second child. To have, we want our second child to have the same donor. How do we guarantee availability? And you kind of mentioned
buy as much sperm as you can beforehand if you're working with a bank. For us, and ours isn't. I mean, for us, like we try to get as much as we can up front, right? So that they don't have that issue. And if they do need it, they know the person, they can go to them. They have the whole roadmap that we had created already. So they don't need our services again, hopefully. So it's, we try to make it as easy and seamless as possible. But, and then in terms of cost that I didn't answer was like through our company is like so if you go to a sperm bank, that's the cost, right? The $1,800 to $2,500 plus shipping per vial, and subscription fees, right? And then obviously, like using a Facebook donor or something like that, I don't know, what is he going to charge you? You have to like, are you doing an at-home insemination through a kit, which I do not recommend because of legal issues, right? Things like that. Without any FDA testing, et cetera. And then with us, it's we don't charge per vial. So we just do like, this is the whole fee. And then there's costs of like the legal agreement, the psych, like all of that kind of is factored in. But generally the donation costs are about $3,000 to get the $3,000 to $4,000 to get like the 4 donations. And then if you get 10 or 15 vials out of that, you can divide and figure that out just for that part.
Yeah. And then those costs don't even account for the treatment. So like, IVF or anything like that.
Yeah, that's a whole other ballpark.
Like agency fee, donor fee
for us,
psych, legal, and then the donation collection, and then the IVF or IUI.
But with sperm banks too, it doesn't count for IUI or IVF. Like that's just the vial.
Gotcha.
And IVF is probably the easiest way to guarantee you'll have like almost all of your children from the same donor. Obviously, there's no one says guarantee ever in fertility, but that's like a way that you can potentially make multiple embryos with one egg extraction, and then all those embryos would have the same biological parents essentially. But obviously, it's cost limiting going straight to IVF without like a need. So.
Gotcha. Yeah, and then another question we saw about cost. It's a good segue into is. Can you use insurance or FSA or HSA to pay for donor sperm?
I don't know the answer to that. I think you can for things that relate to you and your medical journey. So your genetic tests, things like that. Sometimes like I think people have tried to use that for our fee. But if the donor's name is the patient, he's not or he or she, I guess it depends on the situation, is not under that person's insurance, and so you can't use your insurance to pay for someone who's not on your plan. So usually not for like their tests or their donations. Or
the caveat though is that progeny, like progeny, Carrot, some of those like fertility specific, like certain companies have kind of insurance coverage, and we've seen in our experience that they will reimburse for like things like, not that this is applicable to every known donor situation, but our agency fee, the payment to the donor, they will reimburse for like even smaller like genetic and semen analysis tests.
Legal, psych. Yeah, they're really all encompassing. It's great. I wish everyone had those companies, honestly. They're phenomenal.
Yeah. It sounds like they're covering a lot now.
Yeah.
All right. So I know we don't have too much time left, so I'm just going to pick and choose some of these key ones here that I see, and then save some time for the end where people can learn more about you guys and how to reach out. My husband is devastated. We need a donor. How do other couples get through this?
Time, therapy, being able to really pinpoint what part of it is like, obviously it's awful to not have like, genetic offspring. If that's something you've wanted, that is something that's never easy to learn. But I think trying to pinpoint like what the actual problems are. Are they worried that they won't love the kid as much because they're not related to them? Are they worried that, you know, the kid is going to know and not view them as a father or parent or whatever it is, right? So I think really trying to figure out like where those, I want to say insecurities, because it's not that, but like really where those like concerns are coming from. Yeah, I don't know.
And I think like 3 Makes Baby, she
Yeah.
mentioned that book earlier, like kind of goes through that a little bit. And I think finding community, right? Like that's one of the most
Yeah.
helpful, whether it's like through social media communities. There's so many communities out there now. I know for us, like we have an alumni network where some of our like male infertility or couples dealing with male infertility have kind of connected through there after the fact. And I think that can be really beneficial too, to see like we have some of those families that are like thriving with their baby, and can think of a couple offhand that are just like always like so happy. And I think seeing that success story and seeing how much that person loves their child is what you need to see.
And how much their child loves them. Like,
Yeah.
has no idea, and just so happy to have those parents.
And I look at my son, like I'm not biologically related to him, but like, and I am biologically related to my daughter. She carried both because she's a superstar that did all the hard work. But like, I see them no differently in my mind. So I think that's something you don't understand or know until you actually have your child in front of you and you're like, I'm obsessed with them. They're crazy, but I'm obsessed with them.
And then I think this one's a really good one. So what if I pick a donor and then regret my choice? Can I switch mid process?
Depends on like what route you're taking, right? If you're working as a sperm bank, you could try to sell back those vials or sell them to someone else, which makes me nervous about how many people there are if there's no monitoring of anything. But you could do that, right? And you could start over. With us, if there's something that comes up that's like, you know, a necessary reason to switch. So like there's a gene in common, the semen analysis wasn't high enough that their doctors turned down, anything like that. Yeah, we'll absolutely, you know, have them work with another donor.
Yeah.
And then I'm trying to think like, yeah, if it's a friend or family, you can switch at any point unless you're pregnant, obviously, and just restart. But
I think early in our experience, we like got pretty far with one donor and then ended up having to switch course for a genetic overlap that had not been on our original panel. And I mean, those things can be very I mean, this is a huge decision. So
yeah,
it like you have to do what's best for you at the end of the day. But
it's a great point. And then the last one that I've created, but it's to ask you guys, is like what's the one thing you wish everyone knew? Oh, hold on, let me pull it up here. What's the one thing you wish everyone knew before starting the donor process?
I wish everyone knew that it didn't have to feel impersonal. Like it doesn't have to be the phrase that we kept getting as intended parents when we went to clinics is, it's just genetics, just pick one.
DNA.
Just DNA, just pick one, You're going to have your kid. That's all that matters. And it's not like I mean, in our view, it's not like it's a person. And my view is always, if my kid ended up exactly like this donor, he lost our genetics completely in the mix, like ours got washed out for everything, personality, everything. Would we want this person at our dinner table every night for the rest of our lives, or like until we're really old? And if like the answer is, I don't know, because I haven't met him. Like, I don't know, he could be really annoying or really mean spirited. Or one thing that I think a lot of people don't realize is like a lot of people that apply to sperm banks or apply to us even put that they don't want to donate to a queer family. And like, if that's the case and you're a queer family picking a donor, and what if that donor is homophobic, right? Like, what if that happens? And how would you take that news? How would your kid take that news, knowing that they've been raised by two parents that are the same sex? That like all of that stuff, you can figure that out. You can go through this and like feel good and feel excited. And it doesn't have to be like someone's trying to steal my kid feeling. They're not, they're just trying to help. So
I was going to say the same as like it doesn't have to feel threatening. It can feel actually like really euphoric and amazing and exciting and warm and personal. And I think for us, like we kept feeling like icky about like using somebody that we didn't know. We were like, oh my gosh, that's going to be like inside of us, part of our child, etc. And then when we found our donor, I still have a video of her doing like a happy dance. He could be watching this at some point, but a happy dance on our kitchen floor of like so much excitement. And I think like just seeing those traits in our child and like having that excitement around this situation has been beautiful, and it doesn't have to feel scary. Yeah.
And no, we will not show that video ever. For
Stay tuned on our TikTok. No, I'm just kidding.
Amazing. Well, yeah, those were the questions that we were able to get through. Yeah, it's like the last kind of things. is there anything you want to share with people? How could people reach out to you guys if they have other questions or want to learn more about SeedScout?
Yeah, they can reach out to info@the SeedScout, TheSeedscout.com. We are super accessible. We're accessible on Instagram, on any platform.
We always answer our
Yeah.
Instagram DMs. Like I'm posting content on there frequently. We have a TikTok and we have our website as well, where you can always, like, if you're interested in being a donor or a client, can reach out through that avenue.
And just like as a 1-minute blurb about the SeedScout is that we have the 3-family limit. Everyone's known, so you get to really get to know the person. We have mostly gay donors, but like a whole range of different ethnicities and people and backgrounds and everything. And then we also have required yearly updates from donors about medical history to make sure that you always know what comes up as life goes on. So
awesome. Well, thank you for that. And thank you for taking the time to answer a lot of these questions.
Yeah.
There was a lot of great things that I even learned about. So appreciate that. And so we'll record this and then people will be able to see it afterwards if they want to too. As well.
Awesome. Thanks, Viv. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah,
Bye.
good seeing you.
Bye.